guys, it's Michelle from Choice of Motherhood. I just wanted to do a quick overview on IUI versus ICI versus IVF. Lots of acronyms going on here. Just to give you guys kind of an overview of what I'm doing versus what options there are out there for fertility treatments. So let's get started. So first off, what I do at home, my home inseminations, are what's called intracervical insemination or intravaginal insemination, ICI or IVI. Basically, no doctor is needed. It's doing the same thing as sex does, taking the sperm and shoving it up your vagina into cervix, like around your cervix, not actually in your cervix. Your cervix acts as like a little cleaning mechanism to get the sperm out of the semen. So basically with ICI and IUI, or ICI and IVI, you are just inserting the sperm into your vagina around your cervix. That is the method for home insemination. That's about it for that one. IUI, intrauterine insemination, is where it gets a bit more complicated. With this, you need to have a midwife or an OB/GYN or like a reproductive endocrinologist, RE, fertility doctor to do it. The reason for that is they take a catheter, put it through your cervix into your uterus, and then put the sperm in that way. The reason you need someone proper to do this is because unless you're using frozen wash sperm, which basically takes the sperm out of the semen, if you put semen into your uterus, you can cause extreme uterine cramping and like infections and a whole bunch of nastiness. The reason for that is your cervix naturally does that. It naturally washes the sperm. So when you're just bypassing your cervix, it's like you took lake water and you just put it directly into your tap versus going through a treatment center. All the nasty stuff is still in there. So you need a doctor to wash the sperm before doing that. Yes, you can buy washed vials and therefore technically can do it at home. I know there are people that do that at home, especially like lesbian couples, because you can get the washed sperm, and IUI has a much higher success rate than ICI. ICI basically, because it's like sex, has the same chances as sex. But with IUI, I don't know, because you're using the catheter to go through your cervix, which is a very tiny hole, and you don't want to scrape your uterus with the catheter. It's just one of those things that is best done by a medical professional. Have I considered doing it at home? Yep. Have I done it at home? No. It's just so much more risk involved doing it at home, because you need everything so clean, because you're putting it so far into your uterus, or you're going into your vagina so far that you're going through your cervix into your uterus. So not really recommended to do at home, but definitely through a doctor. Basically what will happen is they will prop you up onto a table, just like a pap smear. I've heard that it hurts less. I haven't had an IUI, but I've heard it hurts less than a pap smear. So it's a quick procedure. Usually they just pop you up on the table and spread you wide open. The catheter goes into your cervix. They plunge the sperm in. That after they wash it, if you're using a partner's sperm, or if you're using unwashed vials, they wash it beforehand. If you're using washed vials, they just defrost it. So catheter goes through. They plunge it into your uterus. You usually lie on your like on an angle, hips propped up, or legs in the air kind of deal, for about 20 minutes, and then you're good to go. With that, it's higher chances because you bypass the cervix. You also tend to have more sperm that make it into your uterus because you don't have your cervix taking out so much. So just higher counts end up in your uterus. Plus you're giving it like a little head start. It's like starting the race halfway there. So it's usually, I want to say about $1,000 per insemination. Plus if you're using a donor, obviously the donor vials. If you're doing medicated cycles with Clomid or, can't remember the other one that begins with an F. But anyway, if you're doing medicated cycles, obviously it's a bit more because you are using medicine. And if you don't have insurance coverage, that will cost you more than if you're covered for those medications. Now, IVF. IVF was always like my I will never go there sort of deal. And now it's like on my if I could afford it, I would be doing it right now deal. With IVF is your highest chances of getting pregnant. The reason for that is they remove the eggs, they remove the sperm, well, all of them you're removing the sperm, but anyway, you're basically taking the eggs and pre-mixing it in a petri dish. Eggs are automatically fertilized and then transferring just the embryos. Basically you're bypassing that whole hoping it fertilized stage. With ICI and IUI, you don't know if even the eggs are even fertilized. So you're basically hoping that they fertilized and then hoping they implant. Whereas with IVF, you're basically just needing them to implant. You can choose how many you transfer with IVF. So this is where it's really great if you don't want multiples. A lot of people assume multiples are with IVF. The reality is the majority of those, like Kate plus 8 and like those ones, I'm sure there's more that I just can't think of. They are actually medicated IUIs. With medicated IUIs, what happens is multiple eggs are released. Unlike IVF, where you can control how many embryos you transfer, with IUI, the eggs are released, so however many eggs are fertilized and implants, that's how many babies you get. Whereas with IVF, say you get 10 eggs, you are then removing those 10 eggs, fertilizing them. Usually you won't get 10 embryos, but hypothetically speaking, let's say you do get 10 embryos. You are not transferring all 10 of those back in. Yes, it's unlikely that you're going to have multiples. I shouldn't say unlikely. It's not, you're not likely to have a huge high order multiples with medicated cycles, but there's a higher chance of that happening than with IVF. With IVF, I would be doing a single embryo transfer. I do not want twins. I cannot afford twins. I just can't. Also with IVF, if you have any genetic disorders that you know of, or if you're over 35 or over 40, or just have a history of any, like having any Down syndrome or any other, like cystic fibrosis, I think. Any of those type of things, you can actually do pre-genetic testing on the embryos with IVF and therefore find out if those embryos are normal or not. If they're not normal, then they won't implant. Sometimes, I shouldn't say they won't. They could be completely abnormal and therefore they won't implant. Or they could be slightly abnormal, like for instance in Down syndrome, they're slightly abnormal but will implant. So you have the option to do that though, and therefore you lower your chances of miscarriage and you also lower your chances of having an unsuccessful IVF. Doing a single embryo transfer, I will probably do the pre-genetic testing if it's an option. It is not cheap. It's like, depending on the clinic I'm looking at, it's about $2,000. But just knowing that that IVF cycle will be successful, or should be successful because it's a normal embryo, just makes more peace of mind. Also knowing that it's a normal embryo and therefore I shouldn't have a miscarriage due to genetic abnormalities. I don't know, it's just peace of mind, I guess. No way is it a guarantee. There's no guarantee that any of this will work, but it just improves the chances. Yeah, so with IVF, you can transfer one embryo. Depending on age and the quality of the embryos, doctors will often recommend transferring at least 2, if not more. But for my age, I would only be transferring 1. A good example of someone my age, mind you, this is without endo. My surrogate that I have lined up, she has done 3 surrogacies, each time transferring at least 2 embryos. The first time they transferred 3 and 3 stuck, but she did miscarry 1. Second time they transferred 2 and she got pregnant with twins. Third time they transferred 2 and she got pregnant with twins. If you have no issues that are going to lead to implantation issues, the more embryos you transfer, the more likely they're going to implant. So for me, as long as I have no implantation issues with my uterus, if I transfer 2 might stick an implant. So I'm not willing to take that chance. I just want one. But IVF, so IVF takes a lot of monitoring, a lot of medications, unless you do a natural cycle, which basically means instead of pumping you full of hormones and having lots of eggs produced, they just take the egg you were normally going to ovulate anyway. I don't feel like it has a higher chance because you're only using that 1 egg. So even though I'm young, what if that 1 egg's not normal? Or what if it doesn't fertilize? Like, there's too many what ifs when you're paying quite a bit of money even just for that. I'd rather have a ton of embryos, which I then can keep for future children or donate, depending on what I choose to do. But so IVF, I think, is more of a sure chance. It's not guaranteed, but I feel like for me it would be a better chance than going to IUIs. I will not do IUIs because financially it's not a good option, because I would be buying donor sperm. So each IUI I'm paying at least $2,000 if not more. And because I'm only in the city for 2 months, July and August, it's not the best time and best use of my time, because I can only do 2 cycles a year. Yeah, and also with the frozen embryos, say for instance I do IVF and the first IVF doesn't work, but I do have frozen embryos left over. I can then do a transfer later using those embryos. So if I do, that cycle doesn't work, but then I'm back in the city for Christmas, because there's no egg retrieval, it's a lot shorter of a process to do an embryo transfer, because you're just priming your uterus for the transfer. You're not actually trying to build up a bunch of eggs, you're not retrieving the eggs, you don't have all that. So me personally, I would be skipping IUI and moving right to IVF, because for me personally, IUI is not a really good option. I would have to be paying for everything out of pocket, so I know a lot of people have, say, 6 IUIs that they need to do before their insurance will pay for IVF. So obviously, if IUIs are going to, or if IVF is going to be covered by your insurance, go ahead. But for me, also, my insurance doesn't cover anything. My provincial insurance covers like blood work and whatnot, but in terms of the actual IVF, it doesn't. Unless I have both tubes blocked, which I know I don't have both tubes blocked because I was pregnant. Might have been chemical, but still, I had an egg fertilized. So, I don't have fertility insurance, so for me, I'm paying out of pocket. I would rather just switch to IVF. There's also the option of doing IVF internationally, which I've thought about doing, but it kind of scares me just because I don't know medical facilities, I don't know languages, and also just expensive when you add in hotel, flights, and all that. And plus I would have to bring someone with me, whereas if I was just doing IVF in the city, I can get just a family member to drive me. Anyway, so I hope that helped describe IUI versus IVF versus ICI a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I am not an expert, just from personal experience, and just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of the options and my thoughts about them. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.